fallout from the torture report is reverberating around the world. Iran's Ayatollah Khomeini slamming the United States as a symbol of tyranny against its people. China's state-sponsored news agency blasting Americans as hypocrites when it comes to human rights. And Pakistan's foreign minister says his country deplores torture. And those acts should never be repeated. Before you say, who cares what other countries think, remember there are always repercussions, especially when you consider yourself a moral authority. Here's President George W. Bush in his 2003 State of the Union.
Iraqi refugees tell us how forced confessions are obtained by torturing children while their parents are made to watch. International human rights groups have cataloged other methods used in the torture chambers of Iraq. Electric shock, burning with hot irons, dripping acid on the skin, mutilation with electric drills, cutting out tongues, and rape. If this is not evil, then evil has no meaning.
No, CIA interrogators did not go to those lengths, but they did resort to extreme measures that some do call torture. So let's talk about that with John Hudson. He's a senior reporter at Foreign Policy magazine, and the Reverend Ron Stief, the director of the National Religious Campaign Against Torture. Welcome to both of you.
Thanks.
Thanks for being here. Reverend, why does the United States have to be the moral authority?
Well, we have to be the moral authority because we are among nations who look up to our democracy. And the faith community has been working on this issue for years to get the torture report out so that we can admit our mistakes, we can move forward, we can go ahead and lead in this world on this issue. Torture is immoral.
Why is it so important that we lead?
Well, because we're world citizens. Torture is immoral. And we're actually having one of those rare moments in U.S. politics where we're having a huge public discussion about an incredibly important moral issue, torture. Torture is always wrong. That's what the faith community has said from the beginning. And now we're hearing that from our president. We're hearing that from Senate Intelligence Committee. It's important that the world hears that so that we can move beyond this horrible episode, horrific acts that you read about in this report, and get to Congress starting to take some action so that we permanently ban torture and that this happens again in the name of the U.S. citizens.
Well, John, Dick Cheney certainly isn't saying any of that. He actually says he'd do it in a minute. He'd do it again in a minute because it saved lives. But your magazine writes, quote, how Osama bin Laden would smile were he to see us even debate such things. How he must have delighted that he and a comparative handful of others could goad the United States to behave so reprehensibly over fear of a band of thugs. But that band of thugs doesn't seem to have a moral compass, and frankly, that band of thugs killed 3,000 innocent Americans.
Yeah, it's absolutely true, and the things that have been revealed and the torturous details that we have seen shock the conscience legitimately. But what you've seen is really a bold act of airing our political laundry out in the open. And if you look at China and if you look at Russia, of course, they're seizing on this report. But the important thing to remember is the kind of debate that we're having right now is something that would never happen in those countries. What you would have is mass censorship, self-censorship, and the intimidation of anyone going after the state in the same way that Senate Democrats have done in this report.
So, having said that, John, how damaging is this torture report as far as America's role on the world stage?
It certainly degrades a lot of the values that we talk about that you showed very much well in that clip that showed George W. Bush declaring that torture is evil. It's very easy for other countries to look at the United States and call it hypocritical. But it's important to remember that when foreign nations do this, they're doing it for domestic consumption, and that shouldn't sway us from reflecting on our own political system and trying to make it better.
So Reverend, have we a strong enough message that most Americans think torture is wrong, or does more need to be done? Do heads need to roll?
No, I think we've sent a really strong message. By international standards, of course, impunity is something that we're going to have to address as a nation. The administration and the Department of Justice have said they will not prosecute. But I think we have actually come to terms with the fact that the United States acted wrongly and acted immorally. The best way for us to move forward is to give the International Committee of the Red Cross access to future interrogations, get the CIA out of the detention business, out of setting up prisons for detainees, to basically restore order in the interrogation and detention of suspects, so that we can again be among the global community of people who respect human rights.
Reverend Ron Stief, John Hudson, thanks so much to both of you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.